Start in a scene you already know. You are in your coat. The keys in your hand have gone warm because you have been holding them for 35 minutes. You are doing the thing you always do in that chair by the door. You are building their defense before they have even walked in. Traffic, a long day. You assume that is simply how they are. But if the traffic and the lost track of time are only a cover story, something else is being organized. The gap between 8 o'clock and whenever they finally arrive is a slow, deniable negotiation over whose time counts as real. A sociologist named Barry Schwartz spent a career mapping exactly what happens to a person stuck in this holding pattern. His conclusion was blunt. The distribution of waiting in any relationship tends to match the distribution of power inside it. Whoever holds the power to end the waiting holds the power in the room. The person kept waiting is, in that moment, the lower status person. If being made to wait quietly lowers your standing, you have to ask what it does to a person's sense of reality when it happens every single week. Repetition teaches. The 10th time they are late, you plan around it. You tell friends the party starts a half hour before it actually does. You eat something small beforehand so you will not be starving when they eventually show up. You reorganize your behavior to absorb their unreliability. You build a private infrastructure around their timeline, ensuring their lateness costs them nothing. Every brick in that wall sends a message to your nervous system. Their time is fixed, and yours bends around it. Most chronically late people are not sitting at home plotting your disempowerment. A great deal of this runs completely below their own awareness. But even if they do not fully know they are doing it, it remains a mechanism of control. To see how hidden hostility works, you have to go back to the middle of the last century. During World War II, an army psychiatrist named William Menninger kept noticing a particular pattern in military hospital wards. Menninger observed that soldiers who refused direct orders were dealt with quickly. The puzzle was the soldier who said yes to everything and then delivered nothing on time. They misplaced tasks, dawdled, and showed up late. He gave that pattern a name, passive-aggressive. The aggression is real, the intent to frustrate or punish, but it travels in disguise. Because it moves through inaction instead of action, it leaves no fingerprints. The moment you confront them, they widen their eyes, claim they lost track of time, and deflect the blame onto you for being unreasonable. We can visualize this selective fog on a matrix. The diagnostic tell is not whether they are late, but who they are late for. They are miraculously on time for the high-stakes items at the top, their flights, their bosses, their tea times. The personal relationships are pushed entirely to the bottom, living in a constant state of delay. This selective fog is not a memory problem. It is a map of whose consequences they respect and whose they do not. Some people genuinely struggle with time in a way that has nothing to do with you. True time blindness is disorganized and evenly distributed. They miss their own flights, they arrive flustered and ashamed, and their lateness deeply costs them too. A person with time blindness goes to war with their own broken clock, right alongside you. A person using control puts the table between you, making your hurt the thing on trial. Researchers study this as a form of coercive control. It almost never arrives as a single dramatic blow. It accumulates like weather reshaping a coastline, slowly eating away at your boundaries through the repetition of small, deniable actions. Somewhere along the way, you stop being angry that they are late, and you start being anxious that your expectation for punctuality makes you demanding. Your body keeps the tally long before your mind admits it. The flat drop in your stomach when the "sorry, almost there" text arrives is a threat detection system firing off its only warning. The control succeeds when you learn to manage your own emotions so their lateness never even has to become a conversation. Stop arguing about the clock. You will never win the fight over whether traffic was really that bad, and every minute you spend litigating the excuse keeps you trapped inside their framework instead of your own. If you are always left waiting, you must stop guaranteeing the wait. You order the food. You start the movie. You go in without them. Expect a heavy sigh, a cold shoulder, or a wounded guilt trip. This reaction is the arrangement fighting for its life, because your waiting was manufacturing their sense of importance, and you just stopped supplying the patience. You will feel genuinely guilty when you set this boundary. That guilt is not proof you did something wrong. It is simply the residual programming of your conditioning. You do not have to sit by the door rehearsing their alibi anymore. You can take the goat off. You can go without them, communicating through a simple, quiet refusal that your time will no longer bend.